The great and the good of the BRICS nations are going to be meeting in Durban at the end of March. What does it really mean? It's a big summit. Even the new president of China is going to be here. Abdullah Verachia is the head of the India-Africa Business Network at GIBS. Is it significant? Is it big? Is it huge?
Of course it's significant, Bruce. I mean, we often, and we've seen since 2007, this total realignment of global politics and economics. We've seen the significant influence of economies like China, like India, coming into the global agenda. And so this BRICS summit really serves as a convenient countermeasure to initiatives like the G7 and the G8. And so this meeting that we have here on the 26th and 27th of March in Durban is the 5th meeting of the BRICS heads of state. And it's coming together not only of political leaders, but also business leaders from all 5 BRICS economies. And it spells a huge step for a number of the emerging market economies in terms of how do we, as economies like China, like India, start to work together, one economically and two politically as well.
And it's always the weird fit of South Africa being put into the BRICS 4, and this is a concept that sort of has taken on a political and economic dynamic, even though it was created by a guy from Goldman Sachs who sort of thought, let's try and get a nice acronym to explain it. South Africa's role in this, we're a low growth, odd fit within the BRICS environment, yet the summit's happening here and we're being treated seriously.
Sure, I think, and this is the important thing, is whenever I engage with Indian business people, with Chinese business people, with Brazilian business people, the common retort from all of them is that South Africans are too hard on themselves in terms of why they've been invited to be part of the BRICS grouping. I think politically, government has been very active in terms of positioning South Africa and helping South Africa to punch above its weight in terms of the global agenda. And so South Africa today is part of the G13, it's part of the expanded G20. And in December 2011, the governments of Brazil, China, India and Russia invited South Africa to be part of the BRICS. And so for me, I often criticize analysts that look at South Africa's positioning and say that South Africa doesn't deserve to be part of the BRICS. And even Jim O'Neill, I think South Africa has been invited to be at the dinner table. The question for us as South Africa, and especially for business in South Africa, is how do we utilize this relationship with all 4 BRIC economies to be able to, one, position South Africa amongst the BRIC grouping, and then also to look at our role in terms of SADC with 15 member countries, an economy with 270 million people, and also utilize South Africa as a convenient interlocutor for investment into Africa. And so there's a raison d'etre behind why the BRIC economies invited South Africa. And so the question for us as South Africans is how do we utilize this relationship with all 4 BRIC economies to, one, position ourselves in Africa, and also to increase the trade and investment flows between ourselves and all 4 of the BRIC economies.
Our traditional investment and trade partners are really struggling. Australia tied itself to China 10 years ago more effectively than we did, and has certainly benefited from that. The fact that the new Chinese president is coming to the summit, he could have sent any one of a billion other people, literally, to come to South Africa, and we would have gone, that's great. But the fact that he's treating it that seriously to come himself in a new dispensation, the new 10-year dispensation in China.
And what's even more important is that this is going to be his first international visit as the new Chinese president. And the new Chinese president has set forth a 5-year, 10-year political and economic agenda. And so part of that economic agenda is this relationship with the BRIC grouping. I think what's important is to put BRICS into context. And the key important factor in terms of the BRICS is that the BRICS are often spoken about as collaborators, but they're very competitive in Africa. If you look at companies like MTN and their competition with Indian companies like Bharti, and I can go on in terms of many other examples in infrastructure, in mining, in commodities, in agriculture, where BRICS companies are competitive in their nature. What's starting to come out of the dialogue and the discourse from a BRICS perspective is how do we, one, yes, look at the competitive spirit that we have amongst each other, but more importantly, how do we start collaborating with each other? Collaborating in terms of the intra-emerging market capital flows into Africa. Number 2, how do we utilize this concept that came about in Delhi in 2012 to start up a BRICS Development Bank? How do we make that development bank a reality? Because if that development bank takes off, it really assists a number of development projects in all 5 BRICS economies.
But that's the point, isn't it? Because the world has been dependent on generous European and generous American donations for years. We've seen the development of development banks, but suddenly the creation of a BRICS-focused development bank could do wonders for the entire African continent.
Of course, 100%. I think there are going to be 5 key outcomes that are going to come of this BRICS summit on the 26th and 27th of March. Firstly, we're going to see a huge amount of detail in terms of this BRICS Development Bank. And what happened in Delhi 2012 was a directive was issued to all 5 finance ministers to go out and independently, as finance ministers of South Africa or Brazil or India or Russia or China, to go out and to create a technical task team to look at the mechanization of this BRICS Development Bank, the makeup of it, and then to report back at Durban in March. What has already happened is they've already reported back. They've met on the sidelines of the G13 as finance ministers, and they've discussed the capitalization of this BRICS Development Bank, one. And then secondly, they also had a meeting in January here in South Africa as members of this technical task team. And so I think we're going to see a significant announcement in terms of this creation of the BRICS Development Bank. We'll also see a capitalization, I believe, of $10 billion from each one of the 5 member states. And it's important that there's equality in terms of the initial capitalization, because as we see with the IMF, is that when there's a skewing of the amount of finance that's given, it obviously skews the influence and the impact that different member states have.
Brief final question. Can we afford to be part of such a development bank?
Of course we can.
Can we afford not to be?
We can't afford not to be, and I think we must see a realignment of the role of development finance institutions like the Development Bank of South Africa, and I think there's no better person than Pravin Gordhan to be spearheading this from a South African government perspective.
Abdullah Verachia, he's the head of the India-Africa Business Network here at GIBS.